is going on, y'all? This is Drake Allen for another episode of Cold Beer and Whitetails. We're on number 5. We're keeping it moving. Thanks for everybody watching, following, subscribing. Um, this week, as it's pretty self-explanatory, as you can see in the title, scouting for deer. And we've gone through and implemented a couple elements to scouting for deer and what we've done for a couple of our setups. I'll dive into specifics and particulars. But before we do that, boys, drinking a Bud Diesel this time, drinking a Budweiser. Cheers, everybody out there. Cheers, boys. Um, one introduced one of my longest friends, Chad Watson. He's just getting into bow hunting. I bought him a bow last year. He started shooting it and pretty much getting a good feel for it.
Oh yeah.
We haven't gotten him in a tree yet. He's basically been shooting at targets. We're about ready to be done with that, but although we still got 6 months till season. But Chad, just talk a little bit about but I know you've just started bow hunting, but just talk a little bit about your experience, what you're looking forward to the most, and kind of your journey so far, even our throughout our scouting process.
Yeah. Well, I said I've been in the military, and as a graduation for boot camp present, he got me that bow, and I've just been kind of going crazy with it. I went and got it all measured out for me and
Yeah,
ready to go. I mean, which that was interesting. I
yeah,
didn't know that it was all. I thought they were just like universal. No, you have to get it all measured to
right.
yourself and to your pool and all that. And it was just really interesting. And then as soon as we got out there, and my one of my other buddies, Cheese, was helping me get my style in, and then Drake came in and gave his tips and
Yeah,
pointers, and which were all great. And everything is just literally getting that hand stabilization right there and making sure
yeah.
everything just stays steady and flowing. And I've just been shooting my little dice target out there like crazy, and I've just been getting pretty good at it. I'm not great, but I'm ready to get out there and see my first deer.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, guys, he's kind of being humble and modest. He's really big firearm guy, knows quite a bit about shooting firearms. So the learning curve and he's obviously a big military guy. He kind of talked about it earlier, but the learning curve of knowing the land, a shooting process, understanding the tactics involved in harvesting a deer, they're not too foreign for him, other than the fact he hasn't put an arrow through a deer himself. So it's been pretty cool watching him grow from just being able to put a target in the arrow at 20 yards to dicing it up, knocking the wings off flies back at 40 yards, which no easy task there. I mean, that takes shooting your bow repetitively to feel like you're accurate and consistent with it at 40 yards. And so I think it's going to be really fun. I think we're going to have a really good chemistry in the sense that I feel like I can get overly involved, and I have been overly involved in my whitetail hunting career. And you're like a blank sheet, I mean, you haven't been doing it at all, and I hope that I can teach you things that will allow you to learn things quicker in time that I did through just the course of my failures, of whether it be
mm-hmm.
shooting, scouting, killing, gutting a deer, whatever it may be. I hope I'm helpful throughout the process of that, so you don't have to take as long in your journey to get to this point. But I think your military background, your firearms definitely help your consistent approach there. But let's dive into. I will dive into our topics today. I'm going to talk about obviously scouting for deer. So that's what we did today. We hit three main spots that we know for certain
Yep.
we got deer moving through, and all of these have a convolutical trail
Yep.
coming together,
Yep.
whether it be they're outside of bedding areas or on the side of a creek bank or quite literally pinned down next to a railroad. They're places that deer are going to or have to move through where we can see them,
And heavy and consistent traffic too
Yeah.
for deer population.
I mean, not one of these places just had one trail. Not one of them.
No.
And the best part is you had rubs all over. It's just about pinning it down. And who's to say we're in the exact right tree? That's another thing I was going to tell you. There's no exact science to this, but the fact we did lay down mock scrapes in those places, and one of them we do have a massive natural scrape on, we're going to get deer movement there. We're going to know what that looks like, sees like, smells like as it comes through. But we may, have. I think we're in the right spots on the money, but we may have to do things on the fly and make an adjustment. But if so, I know we're in the right areas.
Oh yeah.
So I'll dive into. Okay, so of the three, here I'll give you my opinion. But of the three, what spot are you looking to hunt the most? You got the lightning
So lightning tree,
and the
the
bullpen
railroad,
you,
and
and the
the
oil rig.
oil rig. That's
Okay, so you
right.
have those three places we went over to today. What would be your favorite spot you're looking most forward to getting in? What do you think has the most traffic? Where we're going to see the most action?
Just like with the consistency of like trail movement,
Yeah,
I'd say the oil rig seems
yeah,
to be the most traveled place where they're intersecting, and
yeah.
like we have, like, as we saw, there are literally like four. There's at least four, three
Mm-hmm.
or four trails that all converge into the one spot by the oil rig that we have.
Yeah.
So that is probably going to be one of the better spots. But I think all three of them are good.
Yeah.
We'll be able to get to the bullpen one the fastest and probably the quickest without being seen, or at least quietly. I think
Well,
we'll be able to
actually,
get there.
I have something a funny story. So, which this is humbling to me because I've been hunting on 1,600 acres of rural farmland on bean fields from my in-laws. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I've had stereotypical deer movement stuck in my head, which is probably how you should basically be thinking, to be honest with you. But the biggest and humblingest challenge for me is kind of thinking outside the box because this 80 acres that we're hunting on is boxed in by neighborhoods on the north, south, east, and west side of you. So
Yep.
I wouldn't call it urban hunting by all means because it is still a little slice of heaven in the middle of the city. But because when I think about urban hunting, I think about people hunting in other people's backyards. But
Yes.
so, but it's not quite that level, but it is affected deer movement in ways that if you are if you are conventionally and traditionally normally hunting big deer farms or big cow farms, big bean farms, you've got to think outside the box. So we walked down today to do one where we did a mock scrape at in the lightning bullpen. We call it the lightning tree, by the way, if we keep referencing it by that, because there's a massive lightning strike on it where you could tell, and it's peeled half the bark off of it. I know it sounds dangerous. It's not. It's still a massive tree that we can get around and still hunt out of. But we went down there, laid a mock scrape down,
Mm-hmm.
able to pretty much pick out the tree we were going to hunt out of, done everything but trim shooting lanes, which is the last thing we need to do. Do that and hang a deer camera. And anyways, we make our way to the next spot. By the way, oil rig stand is going to be my
Oil rig
favorite
stand.
spot to look forward to too. There's a
Yep.
lot of deer movement there. So we're back there. We're back at the second spot, what we call the oil rig setup, and we're hanging a mock scrape, and we found the tree we were wanting to kill out of, and our other buddy, our Chad's brother Corey calls us. He says he's got 2 bucks running our way. And Chad said, "Well, where are you at?" He said he's standing at the railroad right next to the bullpen, which is where I'm, this lightning stand at. And I'm thinking, well, then that means they had to have come from your neighbor's property. He's like, "No, they were on our property." I'm like, "Well, that don't make any sense." I'm like, "They had to have come from the other side." And he's like, "No, no, no, they came from right here." Anyways, because I know he came from where he pointed at was it was right next to the railroad because we walked back up there. I made him physically show me it, and I'm like, "Holy crap!" So we can be walking right by deer on our way in if we're not careful.
We never even saw them. They were right there, and we probably never saw them.
I was calling Chad a liar.
He was. He was calling me a liar. And I told him, I was like, man, you don't understand. We are like boxed in here. There's
Yep.
really nowhere else for them to go besides the little hay fields that
Mm.
we have.
Yeah, I mean that's something for me. It's gonna have to. I'm gonna have to get used to expecting deer coming from places that I shouldn't or normally wouldn't, just because if not, then I could easily be passing up on a mature buck or for an access standpoint too. That's what it made me think is that the second you hit the railroads, the game's over. You need to be in hunting mode once we cross the railroads because or even before it really because we could be killing a deer that could be sleeping right next to the railroad and have messed it all up because we were loud talking on our way in,
Yep.
and that could easily be the case. So that made me realize how conscientious I've got to be when making those decisions.
Yep.
And but yeah, by the way, my favorite setup too is going to be the oil rig. I mean, there's so many trails converging at this where we hung the mock scrape that we've got footage of some of the rubs and trails in the area, but the uh, the lure it's in an oxbow. So if you know what an oxbow is, it's basically a dip within a creek, and on the right, we're in the middle, if you will, of this area that a deer would have to walk by to get back towards that bedding area, um, which I do a better job giving you an illustration with it. But long story short, it's basically a loop that we're basically hunkered in the middle of that. If a deer was going to make his way back to bedding area, he'd have to go right past us. And we saw that several times scouting before, but that's totally, I'm with you on that. That area is going to be great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What second? What would be your prioritize them right now? So you got that's your number one. What would be your number two?
Probably the railroad track one,
Yeah.
just because that's we've seen them hiding out in the railroad track area,
Yep. Prove
and
me wrong there today.
just because I live in that area, when I drive down my driveway going to work out or
Yep.
coming back home late from work, I'll just see them in this one little spot
Coming up.
where this little trail is, and they're all, that's their consistent point where they're moving in and out of,
Yeah.
and that's about it.
I would say that's my favorite. Are you rolling,
Second
Corey?
favorite one.
Okay, I'm gonna start it up officially. You ready? I would say that's going to be my favorite spot too, just because there is a massive natural scrape there. We hung mock scrapes on two different places while we were down at the farm today, but on the third spot that he's talking about, which is called the railroad stand, has an excellent natural scrape on it right now. I mean, trees or licking branches that have been broke, and you could tell over the years how many times it's been hit. And I told Chad, I was like, I asked his opinion. I said, "Do you think we hang a mock scrape here, or we let it be?" And he's like, "Let it be." And I thought that was the best answer because I couldn't make it look more prominent. But regardless, they're hitting it, and they're
Yep.
hitting it hard.
Yeah, they're it's clear that they already are there, and I was just like, there's no point in
No,
just doing more work if they're already liking this spot already.
you know, I think too. I'll describe it even further because we're not going to take this style or approach. That's not to say we won't experiment in it, but we're not going to take it off the bat. That's just what it boils down to. It's one of the last locations in the woods before the guy who has another property conjunction to yours who has a big feeder on it. So we know for certain that is their last spot within your area of your property that they're seeing before they go there. So
Mm-hmm.
now we're not like I said, we're not going to probably take the tactic or approach that we're going to be hunting over bait, which just because we can hunt better than that. I don't care if I'm stepping on any toes, but at the same time, if you're going to sit there and bait on the other side of the property and take major travel corridor from us, you can bet your butt we'll be sitting in the hallway. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, don't sit there and act like, hey, you're running a cafeteria over there, and I'm not going to pick up the schoolgirl before she gets in the cafeteria. Sorry, she's coming with me, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also at the same point, I'm not going to educate deer because I think that's what feeding does. I think if you poured a big bag of corn out there, right there, okay, you know that natural scrape area?
Yep.
So you pour a big bag of corn out right there. If you were interviewing a mature buck and he could talk back to you, he'd go, "Yep, that was the end of me walking that way. Yeah, I was only going to come that far at night." You know what I mean? It's like I
Mm-hmm.
totally get it. They know you're there at that point. That's why I think we that was a good call to leave that one as a massive natural scrape, and just let that guy who's over there
Let him be.
let him be and bait, and we'll pick them off as they come through there because we'll run a trail camera on all these spots we've set up. But
Well, and two, I was gonna say is that's also the one that's over by the railroad track kind of converges with trails that we see coming out of the oil rig area
mm-hmm.
too. So we know that if they're traveling that direction,
There's still
that's a path that they're coming back to.
yeah, they're hitting the same area on the way back and forth.
Mm.
The only other spot that I would say would be seemingly out of the way, but it also still is right outside the neighbor's thicket, the neighbor's bedding area, is the lightning stand, the lightning tree, and the bullpen. That's where I think that it's going to be a good area. But of the three, yeah, that one's coming in third right now. But we still have three other spots we're going to hit next week where we set up mock scrapes,
Yep.
trail cameras, and all that. But I'll talk a little bit about that one. There's just a big thicket right to the right of their property that leads into basically a hay or grazing field. They kind of use as a travel corridor or rest area, and we hung a massive mock scrape in the middle of the pasture, and put it down in that, like I said, right next to that tree that got hit by lightning. That's going to be good for those deer coming right out of that thicket area, or who just decide to work the south end of the railroad instead of the north. I just know
Mm-hmm.
you can tell the north end gets hit way more.
It
You know,
absolutely does.
it gets hit way more. We got a lot done today for being able to. We done three. Basically, we done what, three setups, and we didn't change. We didn't, like I said, we didn't trim any shooting lanes or hang cameras, but those can be easily done. I mean, at this point, once we get those two done, they're huntable.
Yes.
And trying to get that done before June and July will be nice, so we're not having to.
Scramble.
Yeah, And the closer you get to doing it to deer season, I just feel like you leave your scent in there. You know what I'm saying? It's if you're doing it in September or or August, you're really pushing the limit of noticing a big buck noticing what you're doing. So that's why I like getting it done here early and being able to step away, step out of there. I we got plans to next weekend. We got plans to do three different places. Couple, and we'll talk to you guys about it next week because I'm sure I'll probably try and bring him back on. But we're going to talk about basically how to figure out how to hunt a spot that's got too much thicket in it. It doesn't have enough trees to be able to hunt out of. We're going to talk about how to hunt even a bigger open pasture because that's what we'll be doing over there where we found that suitcase. That's
Mm-hmm.
going to be a little bit harder to narrow them down and pin them down, but we'll just need to find the right tree that brings them into bow hunting range because, I mean, 20, 30 yards, that's what we're trying to do when we kill them. We're trying to bring them in that close because, I mean, we'll have a great view of seeing all the field, but it's pinning them down in those areas that's going to be what the challenge is. I mean,
100%.
you know, probably won't be gun hunting it just because of how small it is. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah, we're too close to neighbors for really rifles.
Yeah. I'm excited to get a camera on all three of those locations just to see what's. I bet I said this to you when we got off the property, but I bet deer were hitting it tonight. I bet deer are hitting all those scrapes we laid down tonight, and that's what I want is them to be able to hit them in routine over and over months on end before we add it in there. Because
Like with the corn, you're just getting them that this is their comfortability spot.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You see them all the time in your front yard. It's just when you get them in such open range, that would be the biggest challenge that I think I've come across is in seeing how these woods open up so big and these trees can be so big is not only figuring out what tree to hunt out of, but how to pin the deer down. Because obviously you see deer in the field. That's great. We see deer in field. So does my nephew. You know what I mean? It's like, so how do you pin them down? How do you get them in bow range? Getting them in bow range can be a challenge. And I think that just from walking the land several times, there've been the oil rig stand is going to be amazing. The ditch one where we still can't figure out what tree to hunt out of.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I was telling you that some of these spots that are so congested with high stem count, the harder it is to figure out how to hunt it, the probably the better spot it really is going to be because if you can't figure out how to hunt it, that means it's easy for a deer to move through and go through undetected because it's so thick. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But and that's where coming and laying down those mock scrapes comes the key because then you're channeling and funneling deer movement near you where they come by, put their glands, their scent on it, and they're on. But we got one task on our hand trying to figure out how to hit that creek or that slight open pasture that's on the backside of it. I think you should just crawl up there in your ghillie suit,
Just hide out there in the bushes.
pop up like Rambo. Yeah, shooting flaming arrows
It's not.
with
It's not a bad idea.
shooting flaming arrows. Maybe put a little tannerite on the end of it.
Now they wouldn't be able to make a good trophy of that one. Then
We're not trying to make trophies, bud.
we're
We're
just
just trying.
trying to get first
We're just
kill.
trying to kill him. Yeah, that's another thing too. Is I'm excited to, and this is, I joked with him, about it when we were talking. We keep talking about shooting bows, about shooting your process, in which he done a lot better. You got a lot more rhythm and good tempo to it. But another reason why that shot process is important is because the second you get in front of a deer, everything tends to go out the window. So just trying to remember your shot protocol can be very difficult in itself. You know what I mean?
Oh
Just
yeah.
trying to remember 1, 2, 3, and 4, grip, bubble, pin. Here we go. That's hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
Much less,
Getting the heart rate pumping when
yeah,
you see
and
that
honestly,
deer.
I could tell you how many times were not that I saw it, pulled back, and just shot and didn't even know what happened. Pretty much blacked out from the adrenaline rush. And that's not good. You want to be conscious through the whole thing. Like, what did the deer do? Where did it run to? Did it look like it was hurt? You know what I mean? I used to not be able to answer those questions. I'm not joking. Guy'd say, did they kick with the back legs? It's called mule kick. I'm like, I don't know. He's like, that's okay. Which way do you run? I'm like, I think he went this way. And the blood trail's going this way. And I'm like, it's just so much goes on. I mean, it's not just me. It's anybody who's killing deer to begin with. It's a lot to go through, and I wish I kind of had some people. And that's why I look forward to helping you in these moments because just keeping your composure and being cerebral enough to be composed is freaking hard, dude. You know what I mean? That's why the process is huge because when the deer's in front of you, there's only four things you should be thinking about. The shot process, But what I was going to say was getting you to become a killer in the killer mind. That's hard to do. I mean, you can ask my brother Peyton. He hunted 2 years before he ever killed one with his bow because he gets so worked up, man. And we both didn't know this. We both started hunting deer together. Me and my brother did. So we both didn't know, like, dude, we've got to be able to compose ourselves in a way that allows us to calm ourselves down. And he did too. He developed his own system, was able to kill a nice buck, and got several does with his bow. But either way, I mean, just being, I'm excited to be able to hunt with you and be able to. I mean, it's a blessing and an opportunity to be able to hunt on your land. I know I've told you that several times, but I'm excited to see where you grow with it. We're gonna try and get you the the saddle we were looking up.
Yep.
Yeah. Tell us about that. Tell us about you getting
Well, we were looking at the one that you have, the tethered one.
the tethered saddle. Yeah.
So looking at that, and we said what we come out is about a $500 purchase by the looks of it.
Yeah, with the saddle and
the platform.
Platform, yeah. Which we can get you the climbing sticks closer to.
Which most of the trees that we were looking at, most of the areas that we were looking at was like probably one tree that both of us were going to have to share. There was the what's it called, the can't think of the word. The oil rig area was the one where we had like actually two different trees that were close enough that we could actually
one would be a right-handed tree, one would be a left-handed tree. Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. I'm excited for you to get your saddle. I'm excited for you to get your platform, just so we can go through the motions of setting up and I mean, it's all a deal, man. It's a deal climbing the tree, pulling the stuff down, because I mean, it takes getting used to, and you'll have it forever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I mean, you'll be able to hunt out of this for the next 10 years.
Well, it's also with what you said. I know I was helping, but the other episode where you're talking about being able to be mobile with the platform and
the saddle.
Yeah. Because as we were out there, we have ones that were from my relatives out there that used to hunt or maybe still do, and they have deer stands out there that have clearly been out there for years, and they're,
decrepit.
And two, once those things are put up, they're a booger to put back down.
Yeah, take back down. And usually a tree, I don't know if you ever looked at it, a tree grows over the parts that touch the metal on there.
Mm-hmm.
Straps become dilapidated, and if you don't check on them yearly, you're done. And by the looks of it, and the poison ivy going up the ladder, I'd say he's not. You know what I mean?
Clearly not.
Unless he's saddle hunting, but I didn't see anything out there that would indicate.
I've only ever seen anybody on that property deer stand hunt.
Except for the kids we watched walk down the railroad today. Corey was trying to chase him off with his gun. That's a joke, everybody. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But
stay off of private property.
Chad will shoot you. That's why he's got the private trespassing signs up there.
I do have private trespassing
About
signs.
the guy walking down your drive. I thought this was a walkway.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. People just thinking that every trail out in the woods is just, this is public property. Oh, you might check it out before you just cross into enemy territory.
Was when we saw those guys walking down the railroad today, I'm like looking at that scrape, looking at the railroad. I'm like, I can see how I'd be hunting, and this could be an issue. I could just see some hobo walking down there drinking a fifth of whiskey, and I'm like, hey, I'm whistling at him. I may put an arrow in you. You walk down that railroad through the months of October and January, and you hear a murr, let's just know the next thing coming along with it is an arrow. That is a threat. That is a threat. No, but dude, Chad, thanks for coming on here. You guys will see a lot more of Chad, man. We're going to be
learning experience.
Yeah. And it's always learning too. If you think that I'm not learning, dude, I'm learning. Today was very humbling to know where those deer came from.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting there arguing with you. It's just, it's learning when I moved to state, the deer hunting's different. It's all a new learning curve.
And two, the only reason like I would say I know more than him about this at this point is just because I walk that property just about daily.
Oh, you're talking about your land?
Yeah, my land. So that's the only reason I would say that I kind of knew better than him at this point. Exactly.
Yeah, but
so I wouldn't say I humbled you. I would just say I live here. I know.
But it just didn't make sense for them to be coming from that way. You know what? And that's where I need to get is an unconventional mind. You know what I mean? So be willing to learn that they can come from anywhere. Matter of fact, we could be walking right by them. So But man, cheers one more time, buddy. Thanks for everybody watching, subscribing, and following us, man. Like I said, we're growing at a pretty good rate, and I appreciate everybody who follows along. I hope you guys hope this has been helpful to you. I know we've got some images and footages of what mock scrapes look like on the land we're hunting at. And if you got any questions or you want any comments, man, just post down below. We'll be quick to reply, guys. Cheers, boys. Cold beers.